All right, we'll call this meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled DET meeting for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. Looks like all members are here except District 3 should be here shortly. Item number 1, or I'm sorry, notice the meeting was properly posted on November 8th. Item number 1, discussion of possible action regarding the minutes of October 29th. We have a motion. Motion approved. Second. Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of October 29th. All those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 2, discussion possible action regarding an update on employee benefits. Mr. Wilkerson.
Good afternoon. I gave everyone a handout. It's just the same report that I report this fiscal year versus last. This is through claims paid on 11/13. Which will be tomorrow. Medical is 2% under compared to last fiscal year. Prescriptions 11% under. You factor in reimbursements, we're 6% under where we were at this time last fiscal year. We're $620,000 less combined.
All right. Looking good. Mm-hmm. Still early, but
Still early.
Is that, John, is that fewer claims or the same number of claims costing less, or what kind of mix is that?
You never know.
Yeah.
It's a mix because one person can go have a liver surgery one day.
Right.
Next year they're not going to have it. So one thing we know of on our pricing with Unimar, their allowables or their discounts are larger, so we know we're getting a little bump from there. We know that that's helping, but it just it's not due to really any major thing. It's just the same utilization I see. I can attribute some to that Unimar discount. We're getting better. In some years we went down way a larger amount too, just because of less big cases. And somebody might get sick one year, not sick the next year.
Sorry.
Grab the seat.
So just still watching it weekly, but that's all I have.
okay. Without objection, the chair will ask the clerk to make this document a part of the record. John, thank you for your time and your information. All right. Item number 3, discussion possible action regarding any items currently on the DET watch list. Any items anybody wants to discuss? Seeing none, we shall plow forward. Item number 4, discuss, study, and make possible recommendations to the budget board regarding county's plan to build a new jail. You have anything on this? Anybody?
We're for it, I think, still. Nothing other than that.
Stacy, are you here for the number 4?
Yeah, I was gonna listen.
Okay, you're just here to listen. Okay. If you're here to say something, I was going to give you an opportunity. But okay. Awesome. Some of us have been in meetings since 10 o'clock this morning, so I appreciate the brevity. Item 5, discuss, study, partnering with the Criminal Justice Authority and make possible recommendations to the budget board regarding CJA's efforts to implement and assume full operational responsibility for providing medical services to detainees. Anything on this?
All I know is that maybe new is that they are going to fund the medical or the insurance through the individuals, but it doesn't look likely that they're going to be able to get a policy as an institution, is what it sounds like. So I don't know what that means for
What type of policy?
what?
Mid-Mount.
On the medical side. Yeah. I don't know what that means for the county.
So they're just going to take the individual policies and
For
just
the,
reimburse
I think the
employees?
2 or 3 personnel that are in a position to make those kinds of policies, but not a general med mal. So
I'm unfamiliar with how that works. So
So is there's med mal for the providers themselves and then for the entity in addition to? And that's what you're saying, the entity cannot obtain a med mal
That's what it
policy?
sounds like.
I think the entity could get a med mal that covers
Everything.
everybody or the group of people that need it, but they don't qualify or
But
can't
that's-
get it as an entity. So as a workaround, it sounds like they're going to try to insure each person that needs to be covered under a policy to get their own individual policy, and then I guess the board's gonna reimburse them for that expense.
Either reimburse or pay directly. I'm not sure what the mechanism is, but not having an overall
Yeah.
policy, I don't know what that means versus doing it the way that Brandon just
Yeah,
described.
so Brandon, to your point, if it's an entity-wide, I don't know if that covers more than just doing 2 or 3 people, and then, what do you do if something happens with somebody else, or maybe med-mal only covers a certain level of provider, and that's all you need anyway. I don't know.
Well, kind of where I was headed was, I know at one point the DA's office had come in, and while it's unrelated to this, they had asked us to set aside some money for like legal defense and stuff. Is that something we would need to look at? Like,
Well, it definitely increases liability, but
so, and how would we go about handling that? Again, I'm unfamiliar with how that works on the back end when there is a claim that comes in versus when there was a third party in place.
And that's part of why I bring it up, because I don't know the answer to it. I think it
they're
needs,
still looking into
it
it.
needs to
I
be
think it came
determined.
both came in
There's-
at like 1.3 million.
There's no way that we can anticipate, I mean, it's a big old dartboard because of the way it changes the whole structure. The liability increases exponentially.
Jessica, I'm sorry, what did you say it's 1.3?
I believe at the budget board meeting, Randy said they did receive a quote and it was around 1.3 million, but
Oh,
they're
for the-
looking for other quotes
okay,
for the medical
okay.
malpractice, insurance for the detention center.
Okay.
It's the first time I've heard that they were looking at insuring, any of the
Individuals.
physicians, individually. They would have to be, but that's an approach to take, but I don't know if that limits the liability of
Yeah,
the detention center as a whole. I mean, it's,
Well, the liability is something different that I'm concerned about, is something completely different than a med mal liability. You've got that, and that's something that needs to be considered. My concern is a shift in who's providing what services and how that is treated in the court of law. It's
So I'll be there, so
potentially game changing.
So when there was a case that was filed previously, were the individual providers named? I don't, or was it just like the VOCC, the turnkey, and then were individual providers named? I don't really recollect. I know, like, obviously the jail administrator normally, when we had it, the jail administrator was named. But I'm just kind of unfamiliar. I just want to make sure that we don't.
I don't know if it was ever a negligence of the medical provider. I think it was more of something that happened or someone got hurt in the detention center.
I see.
Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah.
There's been numerous times that, to your point, that the medical provider has been named in the lawsuit as well, and there's been times where the medical provider settled out, and then that changes the case.
Okay.
And they have to defend themselves on that. Now we're gonna have to cover
Oh.
both fronts and changes.
And that's kind of where I was headed, because I just want to make sure that, I understand the med mal side is going to be different than the legal defense side. I'd imagine, much like other cases, you're going to have depositions, you're going to have expert witnesses, some of those things that would have to pay. I just want to make sure that we don't, cut our nose to spite our face and don't at least put somebody on the watch list. I mean, who knows what that would be, but, again, just to make sure that we don't, you see what I'm headed, I don't know.
Oh, I agree. That's
Plan for
why,
that, but
that's why I wanted to have the discussion again, just to try to keep tabs on what the county's exposure is.
I think the problem is with the shift in the way it's happening, we have no historical reference to know what to expect and what can happen and whatever, at least with the way it was before. You look at the bill for the provider and how much it costs, and then we can look at history and say, this is the way cases have tended to go, and these are the settlements, and this is all of that, right? So while things can still happen that we don't anticipate, at least you've got a history to forecast based upon. Right now, I think with this, we're kind of truly flying.
And so by default, are we basically self-insuring because I don't know if that's a formal term or if that's just what it means when you have to pay out of pocket for any problems.
I mean, I think that, kind of to your point though, I think we would have some data. I mean, like I know back in the days when I was out hunting for medical providers through the jail, one of the questions we would always ask in the RFP was how many times have you been sued and what was the liability amount that you were on the hook for. So it seems like we would have some of that information that, again, I don't know if it's dollar for dollar or apples to apples, but let's say Turnkey was on the hook for $6 million over the course of the 8-year contract that they had, or however long with us. It seems to me that if they weren't on the hook, then it would just be us for that amount of money.
I get that,
Yeah.
but my concern on the shift in all of this is then you take that next step when you have a completely different third party that's providing the medical, and it was something on them, it's on them, they're done, and then a lot of times we're out because we can say we have nothing to do with that. We pay a competent provider to provide these services. Now, they're not doing it, we're doing it in-house. That conversation doesn't end whenever it's like, well, your medical was not sufficient. We're still going on beyond that because you're the one that was actually providing it. You weren't going through somewhere else. That's what I'm saying the game changing is beyond the med mal. It's how we will be treated through the process and the way that this standard that will be looked at could be different. That's what is very concerning to me, and there's no way to forecast that, I don't think, because we don't have that kind of information. Unless, maybe other jurisdictions. If you look at other jurisdictions that have self-insured, maybe you could look at what's happened there, but based on our history, I don't think. We could look at one piece and see, well, what are we opening ourselves potentially up to as far as what our medical providers have had to settle for in the past, but we don't know what would have then happened to us if we would have been in their shoes and had to carry on that case after that settlement, if that makes sense.
Okay, so administratively, maybe we can take it from this angle. So administratively, if a lawsuit comes in and we're unsuccessful in that lawsuit, so we lose the lawsuit, is there ever a time where the award for the plaintiff would, I guess that's the right word, would that money would come right out of the general fund budget? I guess is what I'm saying. So, I guess that's the part I'm unclear on how that works.
If it's a judgment, it would go on the tax rolls and have to be paid back in 3 years. Over a 3-year period,
Okay.
It wouldn't come out of general fund.
That's including any punitive damages. Get up there.
And
Again, my only position here is just to make sure that as an evaluation team for the budget, we're not overlooking something that we're not passing the hat in June again for just another form of medical. It's more so what I was.
No, I don't think if something were to happen, my thought about the increased liability, it wouldn't be anything that we would fund out of general fund.
Okay.
It would be judgment roll stuff, which is big dollars, big money.
So the only thing that comes out of general fund would be like outside legal services, is that correct?
Expert witnesses.
Expert witnesses, things like that.
what,
Outside legal.
I guess no court has determined anything related to the the legal separation between the trust and the county. So we could end up in a position, if a court were to say we're a joint employer, it's a sham trust, then it's all on the county. But if they determine that they're two separate entities, but the county still has some liability, to end up paying some kind of a judgment twice. There's a judgment against the trust and then a judgment against the county for its role, and we end up getting double billed for the problem ultimately because we fund the trust.
Those have been the questions and concerns that we've discussed in here for a long time. That's
And there's
concerning.
anybody still thinks it's a good idea to have a trust? Raise your hand.
Yeah, again, my whole point was I just want to make sure we didn't just set any money aside from the BT perspective, potentially for that, but if we're confident we don't, I'm satisfied, yeah.
Not to be flippant with that, but
Yeah.
I wish it were only that easy.
Well, right,
But
yeah,
we could, that it would, because the thing is, if it did play out, I mean, we're talking beyond what we could have
Sure.
available in reserves. But no, it's a good thought. It is. I mean, that's the way we need to be thinking. I mean, because this is a decision made outside of budget board that,
Well, and really, I think, from my perspective, I mean, kind of what we talked about is I think it'll only be the expert witness portion of it and the legal defense portion of it. I mean, I know there's probably some money set aside there, but I just don't know if there's enough.
That would be it right now.
Yeah, it's there
Yeah.
already.
I am glad because last time we were from the DA's office, they expected us like 6 months ago or more that they were going to come back, and they haven't so far. So that, to me, I don't know what's behind that, but I'm glad they haven't come back. Looking for more funds.
We happen to know, we had our contract with Turnkey and then it, was terminated with that October 9th or 10th date, how much money was left that was budgeted for Turnkey that CJA has, possibly still in a line item for medical. Yes. That was a monthly payment.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's like $600,000 a month, something like that, I think.
well, it was a little unclear last time when we had,
Yeah.
when Chris had presented those numbers about the cost difference, the old way versus the new way, and what the cost was gonna be. I know Brandon had asked some questions on that, and I still wasn't exactly clear on, because it seemed to me like there should have, that it was, when you look at what they said the contract was and then what the new amount was gonna be, that there was gonna be more savings than what was identified, right?
Yeah, it looks like over $1 million.
But none of that had the med mal insurance piece in there. So I guess if they
Yeah,
can.
it did. It had the estimated
It was only $100,000 though.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Well, in effect, it wasn't calculated in there because it's either gonna be zero because there's no insurance to pay for it. It's gonna be way more than that. I can see that it's a little less, but it's not an apples to apples comparison. Is that right? I mean, am I understanding that right?
I would agree.
all I've heard them say is that if they do it in-house, it's gonna be cheaper. So if that is the case, then they should have plenty of funds in there to get through this fiscal year. Question is, will they need the same amount next year or less if there is savings? I don't know.
I know they're getting ready to go out put out an RFP for both the health and the mental health piece. I'm not sure what that looks like, but my guess is it's gonna come back cost prohibitive, but I don't know.
Chris, I think you answered your question about the monthly base payment would just be the same. I think we could arithmetic that out pretty quick. I think the only oddity would be the offsite and the pharmacy. I'm sure those contracts are probably like ours. You get them in arrears at some level, 30 or 60 days. I don't know. I'm sure that's,
You mentioned looking at the county pharmacy too to offset some of that.
Yeah.
They're doing pharmaceutical
Yeah.
stuff, so. It was 8 million, I said 7, so.
There'll still be a lot of pharmacy expense because they don't do the controlled stuff. I mean, which is probably
But
be a
then we'll,
substantial figure.
what we've got to look at there though is what were you spending before on pharmacy? And then what would you be spending now if we're able to have those savings? And if that's the case, then, I mean, we've got to consider that next year when we're looking at funding, right? I mean,
Looks like their pharmaceutical is 420,000 annually, 35,000 monthly. Before the offset, 420,000 annually and 35,000 monthly for pharmaceutical.
that was the budgeted, right? But
That's what he
not,
presented to us when he was here last
yeah,
time.
but that's, I would want to know what the actual spend has been. Because we know what the budgeted salary and benefit is, but that's not the expense. Okay. Anything else on this? Paul, you're on that board. You're gonna fix it, right?
Yeah.
Is there a motion to make Paul the fixer?
Good luck with that.
All right, I don't think we have any action on that item at this time. If anybody, I hope we're keeping our elected officials up to speed, and if they're wanting, if any of them are wanting us to move at a different pace and be having different discussions and expecting something back in a particular time frame, please bring that to this group so that we're, addressing that as needed. Item 6, discussion possible action regarding the recommendation related to transition of duties, responsibilities, and personnel in court services to team, district attorney's office, and the Oklahoma County Detention Center. This discussion may include, but is not limited to, any changes related to MOUs, contracts, budgets, funding, personnel, duties, policies, and procedures.
Brandy did some work on this and talking to the detention center. Doesn't, from what she sent, it doesn't look like there's any duplication of efforts in terms of pulling the NCIC reports. Probably what it is, I think Brandon, you mentioned it back and forth. The real added time there is developing the summaries from it, because it's pulling the reports is a pretty quick procedure. And that they originally had 3 people come over from court services. One of the people left, they had to replace that person to keep the 3, and then they had to add a couple more, so they're up to 5 now. In talking to a member of the board and to Chris Sherman, they think there's no hostility to having them absorb that cost, so long as they have the money, and Chris is providing the numbers. He just hasn't had a chance to get them to me yet. That I would share with everybody. But it was mentioned that they're bringing on 57 new people, but those would be the healthcare people that would be paid for out of the money they were receiving for the contract with turnkey. So there still should be plenty of slack or extra positions to fund these 3 to 5 positions to produce these summaries.
Well, and just want to mention this before you brought that up. That's a great point. One thing that we're going to have to track, we've been hearing in the past, we're budgeted for 320 and we have 260 or we have 265 or 250. Now that they're doing medical in-house, are we going to be hearing, well, we're budgeted at 320 and we got 318 because they're including the positions that they're hiring to provide the medical piece that they weren't before. Does that make sense?
We'll need to have that breakdown.
So we
for
will
sure,
have
and
to
that
have
those
a
medical
breakdown.
people need to be tied
Yes.
to the $8 million that was
Yes.
budgeted for health.
And my understanding is that they are. The conversation, I'm not asked for a spreadsheet to that effect, but that's my understanding. And I think they were included in what we saw from Chris. I don't have it in front
Yeah,
of me.
they were.
Okay.
They were.
So
I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we need to be tracking that.
the one that I haven't had a chance, that I wanted to talk to Brandy and Brandon again, but is the position that's at the DA's office with the special population on the ankle monitor.
Kathy's right here.
Oh, there you are. What's that? Do what?
Miss Taylor.
I'm curious what is special about that population that it couldn't be done by team, that it has to be done by the DA when it was all done out of court services before.
The clientele that I have currently, they're a higher bond. They do post their own bond. They're violent offenders, sex charges, murder, child molestation. They're a different type of clientele from what he's monitoring. These are done by agreement. It's
By agreement.
by agreement with the DAs and the judges and their defense attorneys. It's not something that I actively seek. They are actually brought to me. They're escorted over to me to be put on. They pay for their own units. Last week, I gave Cheryl like $3,500 for my clients on their fees. These are people that are, some of them, their identities have to remain anonymous due to the chances of them being injured, possibly, It's just a different type of clientele. It's a lot more severe. These are not people that actually need services like he would provide. These are people that we have to keep separate.
How is it being done in court services?
I always,
She was there, yeah.
She's always
Okay.
You
I've
what?
always done them.
Oh, good.
And they've always been treated differently?
Yes.
So the,
So why
They
not?
have special conditions that are placed on them from the judges. So it may be
Christie, that's your question.
Yeah.
people that are out of state.
Did you say that again?
It may be people that are kept out of state
Okay,
for their own protection.
I got you.
So why then, if they were doing it before, do we need to fund another position?
There was some personal reasons behind it that can't be discussed in an open meeting.
May I say something? I'm Chief Ritter with the Oklahoma County Detention Center. I oversee court services in our part. We have currently 4 people working in that department.
Okay.
I know 3 are from the county. I know that between the departments, we do collaborate. There's a lot more that goes into just running a triple I. So if we have 3 people or 4 people, if one of them is out, it brings the whole balance down, and everybody in the county needs that information. So it is very essential for all of us to make sure that those people are funded so that this information can go out, because like she said, it goes nationwide sometimes, not just.
Right, I'm glad you're here because I know Brandy mentioned that your Brandy suggested that we talk to you, so thank you for being here. Aren't these reports being pulled on everybody when they come into the detention center anyway?
No, it's a whole different report that is being pulled. What we do when they get released is a warrant check, a simple warrant check.
Which is NCIC, not AAA.
Correct. If you run a triple I, it basically, I always try to make people understand and make the person transparent. Because you have to look at so many different things. And then you have to summarize everything. Sometimes it's 60 to 80 pages that you have to summarize. It takes a while for something like that to get done. Alone today, we had over 100 people that we had to get this done. Imagine having 4 people who are pulling all the.
Is the bulk of the time producing the summary?
Very much so.
Yeah.
That's one thing, kind of when I'm sorry, kind of like last time when I was saying, like, for example, even if you ran my triple I. So triple I, I kind of explained in that email, it differentiates from an NCIC in that it's, you could get scars, marks, tattoos, aliases, blah, blah, blah. Whereas NCIC, basically you're just finding out if something is, they're wanted, not wanted, stolen, not stolen. That's essentially what the NCIC is doing for you. And so, so like even if you ran.
So this is a summary they're producing for team, a summary of which part?
Everything, the
Just
full boat.
The
whole thing.
full boat,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So if you run a triple on me, even though I'm clean, like every time that I've seen a triple I of myself, it's like 11 pages, which makes no sense because apparently
They're pretty boring. It produces
Well,
11 pages.
well, because there's somebody out of New York that
Yeah.
apparently is a person that doesn't follow the law. I'm gonna pop my mouth off. So so if for some reason it comes back to me because at some point he's passed through Oklahoma. So it's kind of weird how they, and the reports are, I'm pretty sure they rip them off the paper, with the sprockets on the side of the machine. It's dot matrix level stuff. It's not the easiest thing in the world to read. It's easy to miss stuff. If you're not really cross-referencing, but yeah, on that clarification of those emails, it does make more sense that they're not doing just wanted, not wanted checks, and then they're running what we call kind of a full load.
Okay. All right, that's all I can think of.
Yeah, and kind of to your point, I don't think there's any, there's certainly not any discussions, at least from my seat, that we wouldn't fund those positions. It's just how those positions are funded. When the detention center has 60 FTEs, when they're down 60 FTEs over budget, when each one of those are 75,000 apiece, that's $3 million sitting there. That's
Yeah, don't misunderstand. I was
Yeah,
not suggesting we don't need the positions. It's simply a question of how they're funded and from where they're funded.
we're just looking to see if we could possibly shore up how the money comes across, rather if it's just rolled up into the MOU pack or the FTE package that you already have, or by separate MOU.
Now, it was asked to me on Kathy's position why we couldn't roll that in with the detention center expense as well, because once again, like you said, the being down on the employees and the employee count, we could fund that position through there. So there's been several that have asked me that, and I have not had a good answer on that.
And again, at least my interest in asking about it is doing these pre-trial services and focusing on these things is a good thing to do. It does save money, and it is saving money in silos, but somehow when you add it all together, it's costing more money. And so that's what we're trying, at least I'm trying to sort through and understand why we have an extra expense on something that is saving money. And I know it could be because you have increased utilization. There could be other things that cause that. It's just trying to isolate those factors.
Yeah.
At least for my boss.
Originally, the thought was that I was gonna go over to the detention center. However, I have to meet one-on-one with, several agencies, along with the attorneys and the DAs. So that was one reason they did not want me over there. Some of the agencies were like, absolutely not. Another reason was that is a concrete reinforced rebar building. My GPS units will not activate over there. The minute one of my people go into that jail, it's a blank screen, nothing. So I wouldn't be able to actually work out of that building to do what I do.
But you could work somewhere else and still be an employee of them, but have, whether it's an office down here on this complex or whatever, correct?
And that's why she put me over at the DA's office. She's actually.
But no, you weren't put at the DA's office. You were moved, the position was moved over under them. What I'm contemplating is that the position would be a position that was funded and paid for and reported to the detention center, just like the others, but would just have a different duty station.
I was just moved, and that's where she told me to report, and that's where they put my desk.
Who told you to report?
Michigan. When all of this was done, I retired from county. And she hired me on as a state employee.
When you,
All
may I
of
ask a
my
question?
stuff is-
so when you retired, were you able to retire and retain county benefits? Okay, so
24 years.
the only thing, I know, and that's amazing, thank you for your service. So one thing that you could deduct from the MOU is her benefits, because her benefits were included in the total amount that is paid to them on a month-to-month recurrence.
Do what?
So whenever we did the MOU for Ms. Taylor's position, we figured out the amount. We didn't know if she was going to take county insurance, retain county insurance or state insurance, and that's why it was so much more. It was so much more expensive because the state benefits were a lot more than the counties. And so that's something that this committee can look at, because they would not be needed to be funded as much as they were funded because she is not using their benefits. So that's an area where it could,
But here's the problem though.
I'm just
We're,
saying that's an area
but
where
we're
over.
looking at one employee that is not gonna be the employee that does those services forever, right? I mean, at some point, the employee, whether it's the employee here or me as a District 1 employee or you as District 2, we're not gonna be here forever, so we can't make absolute decisions based on the circumstances of one. So while we have that savings potentially that we can get back on the, by a reduction of contract, because the particular person that's serving in this role right now is on county benefits, when that person decides not to do that anymore and retires or whatever, we're gonna all of a sudden have that expense because it's probably not gonna be somebody that's already on county retirement benefits. Does that make sense? So we can't look at the situation as one absolute employee doing this.
Yeah.
We have to plan for the position and the structure long-term, not short-term.
Have we ever funded that MOU specifically to her? So I was just throwing it out there, but that was, as we're looking at what that looks like moving forward,
Right.
that is.
But in my opinion, it shouldn't be funded for her. It should be funded for the position.
Yeah.
So.
It was just a circumstance. So moving forward,
Right.
something to consider.
But if we take it back and reduce that MOU, then next year, if she decided to retire, now we're having to come up with money for the benefits for the other. So that's what I'm saying. We can't just say, oh, we just found savings by reducing this. That expense is going to be there at some point if we don't make a change, or if we just leave it the way it is and just reduce the MOU with the DA's office for that amount. That's not going to fix it for long term. And that's what I'm looking at it from both the short-term fix and the long-term fix. And hopefully we find a fix that solves the short-term and the long-term.
Well,
And Aaron, do you know on the software, because that's the other thing that we've come up against, is the cost for the software for Kathy, and you may not be the one to answer this, but there was
I don't know anything about.
discussion about the contract, and I've been told that you guys didn't want to do the contract, that the contract was on the county, so we were gonna be paying that directly instead of it being through you guys. Is that still the case and situation, do you know?
I'm not aware of any change. That came from Ms. Behenna.
Because I know that's been a little
Contract was
problematic
with
on our side.
And then there was the 42,000 additional for like all the software and stuff.
Is that through MIS?
That's through MIS. It wasn't listed in the contract. The only thing in the MOU is Ms. Taylor's salary and benefits.
Yeah, so right now, the contract, well, and there's not, I don't even know that, it's on state contract, but they're sending a bill for the software and the monitoring and all that, and Miranda can help me if I speak wrong here, but they're sending a bill here for us to pay when we're contracting the services out elsewhere. Now, I understand if we're contracting it out that we may need to be paying for those, but normally that would be like under a reimbursement, and that's where we've been kind of in a log jam. How are we going to do that based upon the way it currently is? Because I think the DA's office doesn't want that contract. They want it to stay here. So all we have is an employee sitting over there, but we're doing the other stuff. So I just...
what I'd like to do is when Randy gets back, then have one final round to double check the numbers at the detention center and the mechanics of including everybody, maybe in some within the detention center where they're funded that way. Then the proposal would then be to correct the contract with team to finish it out as it was negotiated.
The one thing that we have to consider when we're looking at all this is the long term, because if we do get in a situation where the detention center hopefully is fully staffed, then we get into a situation to where we have to come up with however much money is 145,000 or what I think is what that MOU was. Is that right, Miranda?
145,720.
Yeah, so if we get into a situation to where they're fully staffed and they can't absorb that 145, let's assume they can absorb it now and they're willing to, we still have to consider the fact that in the future, if they can't absorb it, we're gonna have to find that funding, so.
No, and I agree, but hopefully if it's all funded through the detention center and team continues to do what they're doing, you don't have to hire up the additional people to the full amount, the 320 or whatever it is, because you don't have that many people over there. They're outside.
I know, but they'll tell you, at least in the past, that 320 is not the number that they want to be at. They want to be at 400. So even if I don't see them walking down from the 320. It's if they get to 320, they're going to start pushing for more than the 320. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but
I don't think they ever get to the 320 until the sheriff takes the jail back over. Maybe you don't want to take it back over, maybe until it's given back to the sheriff. Put it that way. As a gift.
I don't know why you're looking at me.
I'm just wondering if you're
We're just seeing what your face looks like.
brave over there.
Seeing if you're packing it.
Well, I am, because far away from him on the tables I get.
One question I have is,
Officers don't do it.
But my goal is to try to, as we talked about in here, to get team back to where they had negotiated their contract. And it keeping the county's costs the same.
I agree with that.
So I would say if we can come up with something like that, then we can talk about having a special DET or however we want to do it to kick that to the recommendation upstairs to the budget board.
Did you say in your discussions with Brandy, you did get a feeling she would be open to
I
covering
checked with
some of the
the
fine
chairman
or
of the
some of the
board and
board?
with Chris Sherman so far. And if there's sufficient funding, there's no pushback on it.
Okay.
And so that's part of what we're just trying to nail down, that funding stream, but it will be there. And it's, to me, we should be able to have that done in the next few days, I would think.
My other question, I guess it would be for, I assume it's Miranda, on that one special revenue fund, how much is sitting there? I know we unencumbered some, but I know there's a balance, plus there's been some fees put in there. We need to close that fund, and we need to direct those GPS fees that the DA or Taylor's collecting needs to end up going back to county general where these things are being funded from, so.
So,
We need,
I'm sorry, Chrissy. We can't close 1260. There is an MOU being funded out of 1260. At this
Shine?
time. No, it is, here, my documentation. It was actually the district attorney's MOU.
Yes,
It's out of 1260 3010, which in discussions with Kathy, she's still collecting fees from her specific clients. So, not knowing what to do with those fees, we rerouted them back into 1260 to continue funding the MOU.
Well, to Christie's point though, if we're gonna look at modifying MOUs, at least to the point of removing the benefit piece out of there, if not rolling it over to the detention center or something else, I don't know what the ultimate solution will be, but any of those types of modifications, we could take the funding from allocation from there, from that 1216,
I believe
take
that
all
was
those
the-
mentions out of that and then be able to close that account and have those funds deposited into general fund.
Yes, sir. I think that was the original intent, was for next fiscal year when this contract renewed or whenever, that it would move to the court services general fund instead. But the way the cards fell, it's currently coming out of 1260.
Is 1260 a service fee or is it a special revenue?
It's a special
Special
revenue.
revenue.
So is it restricted?
I asked the questions. Everyone that I spoke with advised me to go ahead and run this out of there. I don't know what the spending restrictions, if there are any.
Do you know if there's enough in there? Say no more GPS fees go in, is there enough in there to finish the contract for the year? Okay.
I don't have a specific dollar figure for Christie, but I
That's
can
okay.
get that.
Kathy has a question.
When we were talking about cost savings, you were talking about my programs that I use. The Connexus program is one of them that we use. I think it's $2,400 a year. I've been working with Greg Williams over at NIS. He is actually in the process of rewriting the old court services program for me so that we can get rid of Connexus, because for what I need, I don't need Connexus. I can do it out of the old program if it's just updated. So he's been rewriting it. We're supposed to test it out this week, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I can let go of Connexus.
How much is that? Do you know what that company?
I think it's $2,400 a
Oh,
year.
24.
The only thing that is a plus with the Connexus system was the fact that the ability to text back and forth to the clients. It'd be cheaper just to get us stuff done.
That was, well, don't need to rehash how we got there.
Yeah.
But if we can come up with something in the next few days, is it something we'd be willing to have a quick special meeting on and talk about? I'd like to see is where all the external partners would all be fine with one or two or three different scenarios for the group to consider, maybe just one, but if they'd be willing to do that, then that's the direction I'll go with Brandon and Brandy. There's not something I'm missing.
I mean, I'd like to at least restate, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, now that I've kind of educated myself more on this whole process, you know, in the event that the detention center is not able to absorb those salaries, I mean, admittedly, I think I unfairly evaluated the team contract initially in that, you know, now that I understand the timeline that I was kind of adamant about laying out last time, it's hard for me to have team submit a new contract when really they were the first to eat in the process to begin with, if that makes sense. And they did in fact come in under the budget that grant was allowed. So what happened beyond that is, in my opinion, not something the team should be held financially accountable for. Now, how we get to that, I don't know, but I guess that would be the case where if the detention center were unable to absorb those salaries. And again, that's just one seat of 8, so.
I'm in agreement, that's.
I agree with things you're saying. The only thing with the team, I really think they need to look at collecting GPS. Just like we did. We're missing out on, you know, their contract was about $10,000 off, but yet we were bringing in $40,000 to $80,000 collecting, and not everyone's indigent. And that would be my only thing there. And we've lost that 40 to 80 on top of.
Mr. Speaker, did you have anything that you wanted to?
Other than just thank you for your continued diligence. At any point in time, we're happy to present the numbers. Jessica, I know that you filled in for Brandy today. We're currently supervising 843 individuals. We've set our budget, our staff to be in compliance with best practices, which is something the advisory council has asked us to do. One of the things I would say is that we, Mr. Nelson, we are, our contract works so that we get reimbursed. We don't get a lump sum. I know that the decision was made to fund the position in the district attorney's office fully, and also the positions in the detention center fully. And we don't have a contract come January 1st. So I'm just telling you from our board's perspective, that's a little scary. And I know you guys are working all through that, but just on the ankle monitoring process, we're also paying for the exact same software. And so you're actually paying for it in two different places now through what was court services, which is now pretrial services, and also through the district attorney's office. I can tell you the program was done collectively, even though there was a specialized caseload. I'm not sure why it couldn't be done collectively again. Whatever decision, I'm not here to quibble over that, but other than just to try to think about how we can eliminate duplication and maximize effectiveness, I would just offer that that may be a reason that you're seeing a little bit of duplication. You've got the same program. You're funding the same program now in two different places.
What's the cost of that program?
Say 40,000, right?
So it's significant.
Well, we way underestimated.
42,000 for the deal.
Yeah, so the software, I can tell you, we underestimated what it's costing us to do the ankle monitoring, just because we have so many that have been placed on it. I think I sent that budget last time. Let me give you the numbers real quick. Yeah, so to date, in what is soon to be 4 months, but in 3 months, we have spent just over we spent around $20,000 in nearly 4 months in the ankle monitoring. That includes the software and the monthly charge for the device. As we had stated last year, we're not anticipating needing any more than what we originally negotiated, because there is a position that we haven't filled that we were allotted for. That's one of the community service intake specialists. And so if we can combine that salary with the budget for what we were given for ankle monitoring, we'll be under budget by the end of the year. But just know that you pay for the software. That's a monthly fee, and then you also pay per device and the cost to monitor that device per month.
So Jason, are you wanting to have a special meeting, or are you wanting to just recess this one? I mean, if the language on item 6 is sufficient for what you're wanting to do in the next meeting, we could just recess. But if you want different language, or somebody wants to put something else
No,
on
I think
the agenda,
that's-
we could do a
I
special.
think that should cover it. Let me look at.
Do you know what the timeline is for the answers that we're waiting on?
I would think, if not by the end of the day, but hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow, for sure, to have the numbers from the detention center as to where they stand, absorbing the new medical personnel and the unfilled positions, and getting the cost on the MOU personnel to the DA and the detention center for this. I can send all that out, and we can meet, but I would think have it by the end of the day tomorrow. So I guess we could meet later in the week, or budget board is next Thursday.
Yeah, the 21st, yeah.
And I think we could meet later in the week, and if we needed to meet again, we can recess again, but I think it should be simple enough. It'll either work or it won't work, but we need to come up with some solution so the team can see forward movement, because I do know the contract ends at the end of the year, so.
I'm out Thursday and Friday of this week. Now, Thursday, I'm coming in for part of the day because we had to recess one of our other meetings that started at 10 this morning. But
Work for you anytime Monday after 9:30.
I mean, just because I'm not available doesn't mean that you
I'm
guys
not
can't
here,
be.
I'm not available Friday.
I can't do Friday, but Thursday you said you could, or some.
I could maybe do it before we recessed until 10:30, so I'm gonna come in for that.
Well, we could,
I don't know how long.
what'd you say, Cassie, about Monday?
We're free anytime Monday after 9:30.
Are you meeting Brandy? She's out sick.
I don't want to ask you how sick, but I mean, it'd be helpful to have her. I mean, if she's able to take phone calls and emails, then I think we can keep it moving.
Is everybody available Monday afternoon?
Monday. I just can't do 9 to 10.
I say we do it in the morning.
I can do any time on
It's a
Monday.
jury day for us.
Are you free? Around 10? And Cody, you're available?
I can,
I mean,
I've got stuff on Monday and Tuesday, but I can move just about everything that I have Monday and Tuesday.
Oh, Monday.
Just
I thought we were
about.
looking at Thursday.
Could we do Thursday morning at 9, because you said the meeting's not till 10:30?
I could, I mean, I'll have to be out of here by 10:30 to get all the way across the hall.
Well, I'm probably not kidding when you say that.
I've left almost directly from across the hall to this one.
All the construction, they're really grabbing up by 35, so.
Had just enough time for a potty break.
And snacks. I made
Of course I do.
You know,
I'll just plan on
tempt fat guy with
doing the
snacks.
best I can to have the information together on Thursday morning. Hopefully sooner, but
Well, is there a downside for us just doing it on Monday? Because you may or may not have the information and be ready to roll Thursday morning, but
I'd like
Monday,
Monday
you
better.
definitely would. And if we need to recess, we still have Tuesday that we could recess until if we need more time on Monday.
The only thing on Monday is tax roll.
So we can do 9:40.
Well, I heard
I mean.
Rick's not available because it's during Monday. I think you said you got something.
I've got something from 5 to 10, I couldn't be down here until 10:20.
What time for you? Could you do 10:30?
No, it's Mondays, we're slammed the whole day. Very busy day. We have slow times in between, but any moment a judge could release, or this or that could happen. It's.
I didn't know you were that important up there.
Two-way radios that we, get down here.
He is when there's a conflicting meeting.
Huh?
He is when there's a conflicting meeting time.
I don't know that I'm not necessary, I could get briefed on it. But you guys wanna go ahead and do it.
well, I think if we're needing a tiebreaker vote, then we probably don't have a proposal worthy of going to the budget board.
Well, if you're presenting, I'm gonna vote.
That's what I need. On the numbers.
Yeah.
Did you say 10:40 Monday?
10:20, 10:30, something like that.
Whatever it takes.
Or, I mean, I could do afternoon, I'm a morning person. I was just thinking as early as possible.
Can you be here? Jess could be here. Jennifer, I mean, Steve.
Thinking of the jury.
I mean, things are changing for us because of the front entrance project and all that, so depending on what type of progress I make this week and stuff, it's gonna be new for us and the jurors.
Well, it's always new for the jurors, because you have new jurors every time, so.
Well, I'm just saying, just how we get them in.
I have meetings in the morning and the afternoon, so I'm gonna have to move them either way, and they're meetings that I can move, so.
I can be available anytime,
So
so I
I'm-
just wanna work around.
I say that say I'm available anytime. I think Rick is probably not, he's not available until 10:30, so I would say anytime after 10:30 or then in the afternoon, so whatever you guys wanna do, it's fine with me.
And depending on how the meeting goes, I may not be available at all. It's my annual employee evaluation. So
So should we do it before?
If you wanna move rooms, we can go over there. And start at 9.
Who's your alternate? Andrea, right?
Yeah,
When's hers?
I think right before me, so.
So we could be,
I hope you survive.
Yeah.
8 AM start time, 7:45.
you need an agenda item on budget board to
Exactly. Preemptively.
You should go ahead and submit that.
So you're saying 10:30's good with you?
Yeah.
Let's do,
It'll be a hard end time. It'll be 9 to 10. It'll be a hard time, so.
So I'd move that we.
Chrissy, it works better for you in the morning.
It does.
Nobody else has objections. Let's just do 10:30.
I was gonna move that we recess until 10:30 this coming Monday, the 18th
18 in this room.
in this room.
Okay, we've got a motion to recess until Monday the 18th in this room. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes shall be the day. Thanks, everyone.